Ready to embrace the magical side of life, where anything is possible and the infinite is accessible to all? Let's have a conscious conversation about what's going on in the world, in your life, and your relationship from the expanded perspective of your soul. The path to awareness begins and ends in the heart. So let's take it there, one step at a time, and learn to cultivate magic in your life every single day. In each episode, we share a collective space in which we discover the unique facets of our own magic and embody our superhuman qualities by humbly exploring how it's super simply to be human. Hosts Kai and Dell co-create a magical experience to remind you that you are magical as fuck. Now, be unleashed. This is our daily magic.
And we are live once again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of our Daily Magic. We already have the comments going, so this is about to be a magical conversation. And who's ready for some magic today? I am. Are you ready for some magic?
Oh, yeah.
Are you ready for some magic, Kerry?
I'm always ready for some magic.
Cool. So this is going to be an engaging conversation that we are very excited to have. Kai already mentioned how she has tons of questions that are going to be asked. This is going to be unfiltered. This is going to be raw. But our intention with this is to showcase magic in this conversation. Somebody already say I am, so let's go. And our intention from this is you'll be able to discover something from this to help you to incorporate more of your own magic into your life. I'm excited. Have your questions coming in, have the comments going in. This is going to be a engaging conversation, and we're just going to flow and see what the universe has in store for us in this moment. So I am one half of the host, Dell, and
I'm Kai, and I have the pleasure and honor of introducing Kerry. Kerry is a peak performance coach. Kerry was raising a family and working as an attorney when she began a daily yoga practice. She immediately noticed that yoga was the perfect antidote to her hectic lifestyle. Initially interested in yoga as a physical practice that made her feel good in her body, Kerry soon realized yoga was a lot more than that. She decided to take teacher training and immediately began teaching. Kerry eventually left her law career and began to focus on teaching and coaching full time. Kerry's mission is to help others find a more balanced and fulfilled life. She believes in action and has created a system that is easy to implement so that people can create change quickly. Kerry teaches simple tips for extraordinary living, using stress reduction techniques and work-life balance to help people supercharge their lives. She coaches corporate clients and elite athletes in mindset and peak performance techniques and creates tailored programs for private clients who are seeking mastery in all areas of their lives. After many years of teaching and coaching, Kerry is focused on writing, creating courses, and speaking on the topics she is so passionate about. She is on a mission to inspire and encourage people to become the person they dream of being and to create the life they imagine. You can usually find Kerry somewhere outdoors with her 5 children in tow when not teaching or writing. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually think it's really funny because I asked you if it was okay if I was unfiltered. And then in your intro, you said you were magical as fuck. So I'm like, okay, I'm safe. I'm okay.
Thinking about playing a game and just keep it neutral, and so that way you can hear the intro and then see what happens from there.
It wasn't 100% neutral, I'll be honest, but I loved it. It was really great. It was magical.
It's like the punchline at the end. It's all where you are magical as fuck.
I teach a lot of online classes, and I have one person who always comes to everything, and he's like, I wish you would stop cursing. And I'm like, I only curse to like punctuate. He goes, not really. You curse a lot more than that. I'm like, I'm going to start punctuating it with cursing, and then I'm going to be better otherwise. He's like, I'm not seeing any progress so far.
It's interesting because we can like start there real quick before we really get into it. With curse words, how people look at curse words in a certain way, and some people are judgmental with it. Some people say it's not right. You're not supposed to be doing that. Been taught that it's against God's way. God doesn't want you to curse. It's blasphemy. All these different things around curse words, and I see passion.
It's actually really funny because it reminds me of how when I was a lawyer, I didn't really quite fit in because I was a little too like funky and out there for people. And then when I was a yoga teacher, they didn't really like it either because I did curse. And when you're a yoga teacher, you're definitely not supposed to. You're supposed to be more zen.
Cursing could be zen-like as well, though.
I find it very zen. And it's just funny because people really want to put everything into a box. And I find that the most interesting thing that no matter where you go, even the most, like the least conformist place, they still want you to conform to whatever their rules are, you know?
Yeah. Fit into the box. Do this. Even something as beautiful as yoga. Try to fit spirituality in a box. You got to do it this way. This is your postures you need to be. This is how you need to meditate. Like all this jargon bullshit. There goes the curse word of the day.
See that? And you know what's so funny? When I first started teaching, I'm not tattooed at all. So you should be when you're a yoga teacher. But I also would sometimes show up in like thigh-high leather boots and people are like, not spiritual. And then I would curse. And you know what's funny? I actually started to get a lot more clients and a lot of people who want to work privately with me once I dropped all of the terminology and I just spoke in regular English. At first I learned all the Sanskrit because I always want to be like, the best of the best. But it's a way to separate you from other people. So as a yoga teacher, I always sought to say, look, I'm just like you. I'm practicing becoming a better person, but I'm not there yet, which is a lot different than this is very controversial, what I'm about to say. A lot of people in the spiritual world will say that you have to act a certain way and you shouldn't curse and you should be a certain way. And I don't agree with that, and I think that sometimes in the spiritual world, they're a little too spiritual and it actually is off-putting. When I became a yoga teacher, all these yoga teachers that I had known and I had looked up to, and I'm like, oh, I'll be like them one day. And then I got to know them and they were like a hot mess. So I was like, I would rather tell people I'm a hot mess than pretend I'm like this amazing, perfect person and then really be fake, So for me, it's all about radical authenticity in everything I do.
That's not controversial. That's universal truth right there. And not just spirituality, it's like a universal thing as well. Trying to put on a mask of who you are to impress others. You see it on social media all the time, people trying to impress others or not show who you really are, to show, maybe highlight the fun stuff about yourself, the things you deem fun, but not like that raw. That's, you know what I'm talking about.
And then did you ever notice that when someone tells you something about themselves that's not perfect, for some reason you automatically like them better and you trust them more? It's just so interesting,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that's allowed you to find the people that resonate with you when you spoke your truth. But that's something as well. Definitely experience that in the spiritual community of the spiritual quote unquote teachers having a pedestal of them. This is how I am. But then like the humanists try to hide it and stuff like that. But it eventually comes out as well. And yeah, truth be told, we all have our own shit that we're dealing with right now. And it's more about how we be with the shit, not opposed to just a love and lights and unicorns and sunshines and rainbow. No, like the dark shit, like when you're feeling angry, when you get triggered, when you're judging somebody, when you're judging yourself. And how do you be with that? Can you authentically express that? Like, I was judgmental.
And then that's what so I have 5 kids. So that really will always keep you humble, because they'll tell you whatever they want to tell you. So my youngest is 13. My oldest is 27. I have 4 boys and a girl. And one of my kids said to me, I was actually trying to convince them that I'm inspiring to some people. And, he was not buying into it. He's like, I highly doubt that. So he's like, how could you teach extraordinary living when like you aren't always living extraordinary? And I said, because that's what the point is. No one is. We're all striving towards it. And these tools that I teach are amazing because when you do hit that like dark moment of the soul I talk about, when you do drop down to your knees, you have some tools to use to bring yourself back up. And to me, that's what the truth is. The truth is not that someone gets to the top. How many stories do we have to hear about the person getting to the top and then some ugly, horrible thing happens and you find out what they were really up to? It's like, that's a story as old as time, and I'm tired of it. I'd rather people just say, look, we all have issues. We all have problems. And for me, finding simple ways that I can handle it. So like, say I get annoyed with you. I want to know what could I do right now to like pull myself out of that and not spiral into that whole thing we all do, where I'm starting to bitch to my husband now. And I'm like, I can't believe he did that. And then I call my mother and then I'm just like spreading this, So for me, it's all about stopping and saying, okay, what could I do right now to pull myself out of this, keeping myself in a positive space.
Mm, mm. That is the nugget of the day right there.
What was it? Could you text me? When I used to teach, people would come up to me like, that was so great what you said today. I'm like, oh, really? Could you just message me a little bit like what it was? Because I didn't remember.
Cool thing is recorded, so we can definitely refresh it. But what you just said in regards to when something happens that like sparks an emotion out of you, or maybe something triggers you, it's so easy to just keep talking about to everyone else. Can you believe what this person did to me? And then take it like personal in that way. And then what you said, like just stop it right there in the moment and take a look at that instead of the role to victimization. That's what I like to call it. Being a victim to life, but really using that as an opportunity to expand yourself. And also this is journey, like we're continuing to expand, continue to evolve. We will still have those moments, but it's all about what do you do with those moments? Well, we still have those moments right now. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but right now in this present moment, we have those moments still. And we're doing something different with it as opposed to, like you said, that spiral. And that's exactly what I was seeing that as like a downward spiral, go down the stairs, keep going lower, 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 lower.
And we're taught to do that. I really love what you said because we drop into a victim mode, but we are actually taught to do that. And as a matter of fact, our brain is primed for that because your brain is there to keep you safe. So your brain will naturally notice the negative things. So we're really retraining ourselves. And whenever that happens to me, I use it. I'll drop a simple tip on you guys, a simple tool. I call them tools of gold. I do something called notice, delete, replace. So when I notice that I'm starting to bitch to a bunch of people about the same thing, or if something happened yesterday and I'm still talking about it 24 hours later, I notice I'm doing it. And then I just delete that thought and I try to replace it with something opposite, right? So if it's something I'm annoyed about a person, I actually try to think about something I actually like about that person. Because usually it's like one, little thing that happened. And then you're now going to forget about all the other things that are great about that person. So it's notice, delete, replace. Tip number 1.
Mm, mm. And that's a good one. And I'll ask a curious question too. I know it's going to resonate with people out there as well. Like when you become aware that you're doing something or a pattern or something, what can happen in that moment is you'll start beating yourself up. So that inner critic starts to show up in you. Oh, how did you do this again? How'd you get in this pattern again? Oh, like the beat upness that goes down. So with that dismissing thought or the dismiss, what can you do when that critic shows up?
I love that question. And I call that the double slap. So you're already doing something that you don't like, but then you choose to slap yourself one more time by getting annoyed about yourself. And I actually see it a lot in the spiritual world. The longer you study this stuff, the more annoyed you get at yourself when you drop into those modes. So, you know, it's really the notice, delete, replace, what I just talked about. But there are times that something happens that you might stay in it. And this is also something that maybe is controversial, but I don't think it's terrible sometimes to sit in that negativity, because I do think it's important to process what you're going through, you know? So maybe one day I'm like really down and I just need to like sit around and watch Netflix and, eat bonbons. Not that I would really do that, but, like something like that, whatever your version of that is. But I think it's okay. I think we all, especially on the spiritual path or on the personal growth path, I've been studying this stuff since I'm 13. So I'm very hard on myself when I don't live up to the expectation of myself. But the fact is we're not perfect. We're human beings having an experience, So I go easy on myself now. I'm just like, okay, you're having a rough time. And I put a time limit on it. I'm like, you have 2 hours or you have 1 day, whatever it is. I give myself that time period to mope and cry and do whatever it is. I do a lot of bathing, man. I love to take baths with candles and Epsom salts and read books. Sometimes I will have a playlist I play in the bathtub where I just cry. It's like my I'm sad, I'm crying playlist, which sounds so weird. I don't think I've ever admitted that to anyone. But sometimes I just let myself sit in it if it's something really bad. And I do give the time limit, and I'm pretty strict with myself. I'm like, okay, you cried and moaned, you're done now. And then I move to trying to use one of my tools to bring myself out of it.
So that's a powerful tool right there that you're doing. You're not fighting against what's happening in the moment. You're actually being with it. And the way I see it, it's like you're being God to yourself. It's like when we go to God to complain, does God tell you to stop it or you got to strip? No, here. If you want to lash out, go ahead. I still love you.
I love that. And some people say like, hit a pillow if you're really angry or something. And, you definitely want to move into more of the like, what was this happening because of? It's usually a pattern that you're dropping back into. I used to have this thing with women that I was like, why does every woman like take advantage of my generosity and then like stab me in the back? And it became this story that I told all the time. And I was almost like looking for it, I feel like, and so a lot of times that actually stopped happening when I just started noticing that I was creating that. I was attracting those kinds of people, and it was because I didn't have any boundaries. So, it happened a lot of times, all through my lifetime. Only during the pandemic did I kind of pull this plug on this. And it was because I had created all these one-way relationships. I didn't expect anything back. And now I'm creating much healthier relationships where it's give and take. And for me, it was hard to receive. So usually something that's happening is there's something in you that's creating the situation. So the quicker you can move away from this, being angry and sad and move towards that, what is the lesson here? It's really powerful. And I do think that being on a personal transformation path or a spiritual path helps you to move into that quicker. So I might have been 3 months angry about something. Now maybe it's 2 hours,
So how did you create those boundaries? Like, what does it look like to go from no boundaries to some boundaries?
It has been like a rocky path. It has been like a hot mess. And some people just completely stopped talking to me because I didn't know how to like verbalize it properly, but now I used to go into relationship. Like if you just like liked me, I'm like, oh, we're best friends. And I was like, totally open myself. So I go a little slower now in the beginning and sort of wait and see. And I'm also aware of the fact that even when people try to give back to me, I block it a lot of times. So I have to really learn to receive before I could even create those kinds of boundaries. So it's sort of a multi-level process for me. And it's ongoing, I have to say.
Heard. Continually evolving.
Exactly.
Yeah. It makes sense too. Like balance, like finding your balance. As you evolve, your balance probably evolves as well. So what you need for balance in one moment compared to another moment is completely different. But giving yourself that opportunity to be present for what balance you need in the moment with things.
Totally. And remember, like on the path towards becoming the very best version of yourself, it's like you get to the top of the mountain and then all of a sudden you look around and you're like, uh-oh, there's like all these other mountain ranges ahead. And how do you get to the next mountain? You always have to go back down into the valley. So I like to think of life like that. So when I'm down, I'm like, oh, I'm just in the valley and I'm about to start climbing up that even taller mountain up ahead. And that's what the journey has been like for me, at least. I was hoping I could actually get like some kind of what is it, like a airplane or something that I could go from one mountaintop to the next, but I haven't found it yet. If you guys see it, hang glider.
Or that thing from remember The Price is Right when you climb up the mountain? Yodeling, 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 yodeling.
I'm like, I didn't see that clip. Damn it. I'm tumbling down. I'm like, it's going to be good. It's going to be all right. You get to the bottom. You're like, I think I'm all right.
Okay. I got to ask you about some of these things in your bio, because like these are magnificent things just like plugged into this potent couple of paragraphs. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So how is peak performance coaching different than regular coaching?
Well, peak performance coaching, basically all I do is teach people how to become the very best versions of themselves so they could lead their most extraordinary life. So everything I do is focused around that. This year, I pretty much stopped coaching. I only take on bigger corporate groups when I get them because I've been really focused on writing. And what's interesting is I would like to tell everybody who's like on a creative path that be ready for the twists and turns, because as I wrote all these books, I started helping some of my friends write their books. You know, I'm very good at organization. I kind of have both sides of my brain that I'm creative, but I'm also structured in some ways. And now I'm actually going to start coaching people on writing their own books. So people who are creators. So I'll be starting that in January. I actually envision a community of creators who want to write books and create courses. And, you know, we kind of help each other to rise up. So I'm really excited about that. But peak performance is just like a catchphrase. You know, it's like this buzzword. There's so many buzzwords out there. But peak performance is really just always striving to move, to me, this is my definition, always striving to move towards the most spectacular life for you. And I love the word extraordinary. I teach people how to go from an ordinary life to an extraordinary life. But first we start by defining what is extraordinary to you. That's where you always have to start. We forget to do that. So extraordinary to you guys might be different than extraordinary to me. And also extraordinary changes throughout your lifetime.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you consider yourself to be peak performing at all times?
No. Definitely not. And it's so funny because when you teach this stuff, people expect you to. So that everyone's like watching for when you're not. So I like to step out and tell people when I'm not, just to circumvent that. But you know what? That's the stuff that people like the most about me. On my Instagram feed, it looks like all so beautiful on the posting. But like if you read my story, you could see like all the hot mess I'm really going through. So it's actually really funny. I do both. I just keep the feed like, you know, really beautiful. But then the story tells a whole different, the story tells the truth. The post show, you know, the little, what we all do, the more sanitized version.
Sanitized, I like that.
Actually, underneath my post, all the pictures are always really nice, but underneath the post, I sometimes write a lot of really very vulnerable and honest stuff, but most people don't read. So I write it in my story in very short ways, and then people know it. Or I like upload a quick little video about what's going on. But, you know, I think that was one of my biggest problems in life, that my whole life, since I was 13, I really have been studying this stuff, like deep, you guys. Like I've read every single book. And I think that I was expecting to one day be like, ha ha, I am enlightened. And I realized that it can't happen, you know? right now my parents are in their 80s, so are my husband's parents. My parents decided to just get a divorce now in their 80s. So there's always going to be something. I have 5 kids, so there's always something with one of our children that's happening. So for me, it's really more about releasing that need for perfection, which I absolutely have, and understanding that my entire life from now until I die, it's just a journey that I'm on. So the more I relax into the journey, believe it or not, the more I let go, the more I stay in that flow, in that peak performance space.
Yeah, yeah. So before the comment, now I'm curious. 13, you started this path. What led you at 13 to actually pursue the path that you're on now? Like,
I
was
was
there?
I was always like a very sensitive child and moody, and everyone was always like, "Oh, you're so sensitive, you're so moody." They're always talking about it. But my parents divorced when I was 2, and I had a lot of trauma from that. My dad moved away, started a new family, and he really he didn't abandon us, but he just really was never part of our lives in any real way. So it was that. It was the daddy issues, and I was always searching for the answers. I also from a very young age was like, I would always watch those commercials on TV. When I was younger, they had these commercials of like the starving children around the world, and we should pay $13 a month. And I used to beg my mom, like, please, can we just pay the 13? We have to help these babies. I couldn't understand from the youngest age like why people don't have food or a house. I still don't understand it. And I think that it was these kinds of questions that led me to the more spiritual text back then.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was thinking about the Sarah McLaughlin one too with the animals. Was the animal rescue one? In the eyes of an angel. That one.
See, they're good at marketing. We should learn.
They tug at you, and you see that with marketing. On the opposite side of stuff, they tug on you, those emotions in you. You're not enough unless you get this bag, or you're not enough unless you get this makeup, or you're not enough to get this car, or whatever it may be. They tug at those emotions.
They absolutely do. And that's why I always start everyone with, let's define what an extraordinary life means to you. And I go through a lot of different categories with them. I want to know what does an extraordinary love relationship look like? What does an extraordinary parenting relationship look like? How do what kind of friends do you want to have? How do you want to, interact with your coworkers? What kind of career do you want? Where do you want to be financially? These, spiritually, intellectually, all the different way. How do you want your health to be? Because these are all important facets of life. And sometimes we focus on one thing, so a lot of times, like, my husband focused mostly on career. I focused on mostly my family first and then my career. So there's so many other aspects. So we need to dial in what's an extraordinary life to me and be willing to step away from what society taught us. That's what the real key is. And then once we realize what's extraordinary to us, I don't think the marketing works on us as much because we're pretty focused on what we want.
Self-awareness. So, have you ever came across somebody when you asked that question and they said, "I don't know right now"?
Almost everyone says that. Or they say something like, oh, I just want to make a lot of money, have a nice house. So you really have to peel away a lot of the layers because we're all taught what our parents said, what our teachers said, what society says, our culture, what the world says. Plus we also all want to fit in. So sometimes the things that we want are things that people are gonna be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, honestly, when I went from being a lawyer to a yoga teacher, people are like, she's lost her mind. There's something seriously wrong with her. And then, I just am always changing and morphing and growing because to me, that is an extraordinary life. An extraordinary life is, I always had a dream to be an author. Okay, let me go figure out how to do that. I want to be an international speaker. This past summer, I did give my first speech in front of a few hundred people. I want to keep evolving. That's extraordinary to me. Extraordinary to someone else might be living on a beach, very simply. That's extraordinary to some people. So there's no one right way. That's why people are like, oh, Kerry, what should I do? And I always believe the answer is within you. And that's what you need to do. You need to look within and figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful way of explaining it. So, one person actually had a comment or a question. They asked, can one be common while having an extraordinary life?
I love that question. And it's just, remember, these are all just words that we're using, right? So I'll tell you a quick story. Years ago, someone said to me, I love your outfit. So I always dress a little bit out there. I always have. I love to wear bright colors and, I don't even really think about it. I dress to please myself and to make myself happy. It just keeps me in a happy space. So I dress a little bit outrageously. So someone said, I love what you're wearing. I wish I could wear that. And I said, oh, why can't you wear this? And they said, oh, I don't want to be a butterfly in a world of moths. And that's what that thing of being common is. You have to decide, like, if you want to be a moth, be a moth. But this woman wanted to be a butterfly, but she wouldn't allow herself to be. So I like to get rid of all the words. I just like to strip it all the way back down. What do you want to be? What is extraordinary to you? Extraordinary to you might be ordinary to someone else, right? So, these are just words we use so that we could communicate. But I don't think anyone's common. I think that every single human is spectacular in their own right, but we've all learned to dim ourselves so that we can fit in the group.
I like how extraordinary has extraordinary in it.
Yeah.
I just saw that. I'm looking at it now.
A lot of ordinary.
Ordinary, your ordinary life, a little bit of extra in it.
Exactly. I like that.
Yeah.
You'll find that in my next book. I'm just kidding. Quote, I'll give you a quote.
Yes.
You want to hear a funny story, actually? So I love reading. So I'm always like haunting bookstores. And a couple of years ago, I started putting quotes on Instagram that were my quotes. So I was telling the lady in the bookstore, she goes, you can't just do that. You can't just make up a quote and write your name on it. I'm like, how do you think every quote ever how do you think it happened? So you will have your first official quote in a published book.
That's an honor. Yeah, it's funny because I saw this one. I forgot what I was looking up. I think like inner conflict or peace or something like that. But then I saw like pretty much the same quote, but a little bit different words into it. It was like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Maya Angelou, like all these different people saying the same thing, but it's added a different word. And I'm like, I wonder if they got inspired by each other. So, this is a great quote. Let me add my flavor to it, type of thing.
Or you think you made it up, but you really had heard it somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, I made this up. They're like, no, you didn't.
Just do it, Dell.
I get so mad every time I write just do it because I'm like, I was saying that before Nike. And Nike's like, too bad. We patented it. We copyrighted it.
I heard you say it and they took it.
I guarantee you they didn't hear me. And you know what? That leads us to something really interesting because I was listening to a story once by this woman, Marissa Peer. She's like a hypnotherapist. And she said that she wrote a book and then someone sent her a message and said, I had the same idea for the book. And then Marissa Peer is like thinking to herself, yeah, but I wrote the book and published it. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are like upset that they didn't do what they see someone else doing. But what I would suggest to all of them is like, start doing what you want to do. So, don't worry about what everyone else is doing and really just start doing. Just do it. Just do what you want to do.
Yeah, that's the difference. Two people had the same idea. One person took action on it.
That's exactly right.
Really?
And that's what I'm all about. I'm all about taking action. I really believe in it. And action, by the way, is always the antidote to falling into those deeper places. If you're down and you take action, it could be anything. Clean, vacuum your floor, go take a walk outside. You will start to feel better instantly.
So you also talk about creating courses. What kinds of courses do you have in your library?
Right now, I have courses that I have not published, but they're all based on my books. So the first one is Tools for Extraordinary Living, the Snooze Button sessions. And I always like people to be able to leave with some real tools, like something, an actionable step. So I'm going to teach you guys one technique that you could use that you can start actually creating change in your life starting tomorrow morning. So with all my years of teaching, something that I realized was that people, they know what to do. They know how they should eat well. They know that they should exercise. They know that they should have good relationships. They know all of these things, but they just don't do it. And the reason is they don't know, when do I start? How do I start? And then also people create giant goals for themselves. Okay, I'm going to stop eating like salt and sugar and caffeine. And they make this whole list, and it's impossible to really achieve. So I stumbled upon this on my own. It just happened one day that I woke up and this happened, and I created this technique that I started teaching people, and it's really, really impactful. And it's the way that you can begin to start bringing change to your life. So basically, it's called the Snooze Button session. Every person pretty much wakes up with an alarm. So your alarm goes off in the morning and you hit the snooze button, but instead of going back to sleep, which is what you normally would do, you sit up and you do something that will nourish you. So you could meditate, or you could get up and exercise. You can, write in your journal. You can practice gratitude by doing a simple thing like writing 10 things you're grateful for. And the reason that it's a really successful technique is because you start out with just one snooze button session. So your alarm goes off, you hit the snooze button, and you just do one thing. And you do that for 1 or 2 weeks until you set the habit in place. And then once you have that set in place, then you could start adding on if you want. So I started out with just 5 minutes, and now I have a 1-hour routine in the morning, and it absolutely changes everything. And what's cool about it is you're starting your day with a win. So even if you just got up and exercised or stretched or wrote in your journal for 5 minutes in the morning, you feel like really good about yourself. You haven't even started your day and you already had a win. So it's a really beautiful system. And I would challenge everybody to start doing it starting tomorrow, and make a real commitment to yourself. Say, you know what, I'm going to do this for 30 days. For 30 days, I'm going to try this crazy ladies snooze button session and give it a chance and see what happens, because you'll start to see that when you start your day that way, when you win your morning, it really changes the whole entire day. So that was my my very first technique, and I have an entire course on that that'll be coming out soon. And it basically just teaches you like 12 different tools you could use during your snooze button session. And then you start using those tools throughout your day too, So if you decide to do like a simple breathing exercise in the morning and you learn how to do one, then later on in your day when you're stressed out, you're like, oh, wait, I have that breathing exercise I do in the mornings. Let me try that now. So it's designed to teach you how to do the tools, start doing them in the morning, but eventually you start weaving them through your days, because I don't think we should have to always work so hard to be so, well. I think that we should weave wellness throughout our life, throughout our days, right?
Yeah, the little steps, little increments. And that's with anything that we want to accomplish in our life. It's all about those little steps. But that morning routine is so monumental. And both of us, we have our own version of our morning routines. It's a game changer.
Oh, I'd love to know. What do you guys do in the morning?
You go first.
No, you go first.
Okay, sure.
What
I do is first when I wake up, and I did just like you, I started out with like 5 minutes of doing this, and now what I do is I do 2 hours of meditation, of being in silence with myself. And then from there, I have a list of my declarations. So who am I creating myself to be in my life? The I am statements and things like that. I say that. And then I go for a walk, usually like 2.5, 3 hour walk in nature. I work out. I do CrossFit 3 times out the week. But all those things with intention is me doing stuff for myself and be with myself. Because what I realize is life would inevitably force me to be with myself. But me spending that time of being with my thoughts, with my emotions, with all the stuff going on inside me in a loving way, helps me when life has the unexpected, inevitable curveballs that it throws at you. And I can be able to handle those with more grace, because like you're saying, the stuff I do in the morning is going to help me out in my life. And that's how it is now with things. And it's very monumental. It's continuing to grow. It continues to expand as well. But I'm number one advocate for like taking care of yourself first in the morning when you have that time. Game changer.
I love that. You really are doing a lot too. So that's amazing. And that's what happens too, right? You start with the 5 minutes and you're like, wow, this is really making me feel great. The first time I did it by accident. I woke up, hit the alarm, meditated. And at the end of the night, I was like to my husband, I had like the best day. And he's like, what did you do different? And I said, I just meditated for 5 minutes. And you wouldn't think that could change your life, but it really does, because I started realizing, wow, what if I spent 20 minutes in the morning doing something? And sometimes it's even worth giving up a little bit of your sleep to do these practices, because they are very relaxing, almost like sleep, So that's really cool. I love your morning routine. That's amazing.
Yeah. And that's the other added thing too. Like, I need less sleep than what I needed before doing this as well. And like you're saying, the meditation and stuff, it is like sleep.
Yeah. And you know what? I learned that. So I teach people how to habit stack. So you start with your morning routine with that alarm. That's called a habit stack, because there's something you're already doing, which is having the alarm go off. And then you add a practice right there. So you can find all times throughout your day that you could habit stack. So once you learn the tools, you could use them any time of the day. And think about it. You brush your teeth every day. So you could post, what you were saying was about those I am statements. I am powerful. I am strong. Whatever your I am statements are, you could just post that right by where you brush your teeth and you could read it. So eventually you learn how to stack these habits throughout the day. And then it's not even work anymore. It's just part of your life, the same as you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or brush your teeth. You're meditating for 5 minutes. You're stopping to breathe because you're noticing you're getting stressed out. So it really does affect your whole entire day when you do tiny, simple steps like that. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great steps. I usually start eating at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it's a nice practice to literally consume what it is that I'm creating for the day. What emotions are present for me while I'm having that first meal? And I eat 6 times a day as a bodybuilder, so I got to make sure that starting at 6 a.m. Absolutely happens. And then after I create my day, everything else is intuitively guided by that. Maybe it is a productive day. Maybe it's not a productive day. And I'm in bed until 12 o'clock. And all of that ends up being intentional. But starting with that first moment of creative intention is what gets the rest of the day going for me.
I love that. And I love that you eat first thing in the morning, because this is what I was talking about. People will say, no, you need to interval eat. No, you need to eat twice a day, 3 times a day. This 6 to 8 times a day is too much. You're honoring your body and what you're doing. So if you're a bodybuilder, you need to eat more. So that's why there's no one size fits all. That's the main thing that I teach. There's no one size fits all. There's only one size for you. What works for you? What's extraordinary for you? What do you want with your life? And I think it's really valuable to periodically, I do it every day, think about if it was the last day of your life and you're looking back upon your life, what would you want to have accomplished? Right? And it kind of keeps you like, oh, maybe this isn't that important, what just happened with this person who cut me off on the road. I'm here to do something else. I have a bigger mission, so always keep it in mind. Our life is, it's not endless. It's finite. So keep it in mind and just keep moving towards what's the best life for you. Don't let anyone else tell you. You could learn tools from other people. You could be inspired by other people. But at the end of the day, only you know. And I believe you know from your heart. I believe your heart is the one. Drop out of your head into your heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we actually have a comment for someone else's self-care routine. And they say, I go for my 5-mile walk without stepping on a rattlesnake. Oh my goodness. Talk about obstacle course. That almost happened a month ago. Sheesh. That's interesting.
Yeah, you have to be like uber present, I guess, when the rattlesnakes are around. My family loves to climb. 2 of my kids are very into indoor and outdoor climbing. So I watch a lot of climbing movies. And there's a guy, Alex Honnold. He's the greatest free climber in the world. He's unbelievable what he does. And he said that so many people think what he's doing is dangerous, but it's the only time in his life that he's 100% present. Because if you're not, you're going to fall. And he's going to die if he falls from where he is. So I found it so interesting. And that's what she's doing with the rattlesnake walk. You have to stay present. Most of the time we're somewhere else. you know? And I think that the way you start your day is so interesting because you're starting with the intention, you know, you're eating and seeing how you feel and what you want to do that day. So you're being very present with whatever is. You're not trying to force a different day on yourself. You're having the day that you need that day. So that's really cool. I love that.
That super presence too. Who was talking about? I don't know where I heard it at on one of the podcasts I was listening to, but it was like, you know what makes the difference for Michael Jordan being as great as he was? It was the fact that he was so present in the moment. So for him being that super present the way that he was, allowed him to go to that next level, the other level that he was. He's like fully in the moment, not thinking about what's going to happen in the next series or that. He's present in the moment for what's happening in the space. I'm like, that is deep.
It's so deep. And I love to study all of those guys. I love to study elite athletes in general. I read all of their books because there's so much wisdom that the reason they're where they are is because they have learned to do exactly that. So really peak performance was originally just kind of thought about in the sports field. And we all see it. It's when they get into that zone, in the zone, and it's like magic, and they don't even remember it, you guys. They're so present that they're just performing and they're like one with all that's around them. So I think that we could take that, and you watch it with performers, you know, if you see like Beyonce on stage, she's in the zone, she is fully present. All performers are fully present, the ones who are at the very top. So I like to study those people and be inspired by them and try to apply those principles to my life, even for the ordinary stuff, even for washing dishes, even for taking out the garbage. I want to just fully be wherever I am. And that's why sometimes I am allowing myself to just, you know, sit in bed if I need to for an hour or two, if that's what I need that day. I think a lot of times we shove our feelings down and we shove our real truths down. So I really live where I want to bring all those truths out, even the ugly ones.
So with the elite athletes, I know that was another one in your bio. What type of sports athletes do you work with now? And like what different
Right
sports?
now, I'm not working with any, but I worked a lot. It was usually men's teams, and I worked with basketball players, football players. I worked with all the different sports. And it's really funny because I was teaching them all of this stuff, but I had to change all the names for everything so that they would be willing to listen to it. I'm like, this is an elite mindset technique. And then I would teach them meditation, you know, I'd be like, this is a stress relieving technique. And then I teach them a breath exercise. So everywhere I go, I teach the same stuff. I just sometimes, you know, I drop the lingo so people don't get so scared, because really at the end of the day, all of these practices, they're all like stress relieving practices. They are all peak performance practices. And the funny thing is the elite athletes, they've been practicing this stuff since like the 50s. You know, they just did it without telling anybody. So the elite athletes always had access to this stuff. So now it's finally coming down to just the ordinary people. And I'm really happy about that. I'm very motivated. I feel like a lot of times the people who need it the most don't get this information. So I'm really motivated to get this information to everybody so we could all live our best lives, because that's how you create a new world, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. You helped me like have a light bulb just now of like changing the lingo to whoever I'm speaking to, like in a way that morphs for this person's language. So I love the fact that you're able to morph what you're doing and talk about it in a way for like elite athlete, or I'm pretty sure you have like a spiritual way to talk about it when you say to them, "Oh yeah, we're gonna meditate." I love that. That's pretty cool.
And you know what's funny that you said that? The other day I was talking with someone, very spiritual guy, and he felt like I was wrong to do this. He was very offended because I was like, I think he said I was diluting the teachings. And I said, look, it depends on what your intention is. My intention is not to bring the teachings down. My intention is to help people have an extraordinary life. So in order to do that, I'm going to use whatever words I need to get the ideas across. I'm not stuck with any of that, you know? Words
Yeah,
are words as far as I'm concerned.
yeah. It reminded me, and this was like on my TikTok. I was just saying like, yeah, you could be spiritual and still eat meat. And then somebody said to me in a comment, "No, that's not spiritual. Eat meat." And then I responded to him like, "According to who?"
And also, is it spiritual for you to tell me how to live my life? And do
Exactly.
you want me to tell you? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're actually hurting someone. And I understand, you know, a couple of my kids are actually vegan, and I understand both sides of the argument, but I think it's a very personal thing. I was a vegan when I was a teenager, and I've tried to be a vegan many times in my life. I get sick when I'm a vegan. I don't know if I'm not eating the right way or whatever it is. I sometimes need meat. So I honor that, you know, and if people judge me for that, then so be it. And trust me, in the yoga world, they definitely judged me. And I refuse to lie about it either. Some people in the spiritual world or in the yoga world or wellness world, they lie about it. They say they're a vegetarian, but they're not. I'm not doing that. I'm radical authenticity, you know? So I think it's time. And you know what? And that's also them looking at you to see what they could point the finger at about you instead of looking at themselves. So I always say to those people, well, you know, I'll worry about myself and you worry about yourself. And then they usually hate me.
It's like, I'm pulling the mirror out. Oh my God. Yeah. You're not causing harm to anyone. You're doing something that resonates with you, and your intention isn't ill harm intention with it. And
yeah, but people don't like when you come out with the mirror. They're like, ah. I'm like, I was just showing you yourself. I don't know what to tell you.
I believe there's a way to also like make you sick, right? When you're avoiding all kinds of foods, it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen when you actually encounter that food that you're avoiding? So for a vegan, what happens when you actually consume meat? It's like, are you gonna die? Are you gonna get sick? What's gonna happen? So I had done some like experimentation, and was vegan for quite a while, and then I started to ease my way back into eating meat, and then I was like, no, chicken gives me a headache. I can't eat it, and it's like all of that was psychosomatic.
It's actually interesting because the purer you get in your diet, the harder it is to eat anything impure. So it depends on how strict you want to be in your life. I have 5 kids. I still have 3 of them who live in my house. They're still, teenagers. So I don't have time to sit there and be perfect about my diet, my vegan diet. Maybe one day when I have more time and I could really focus on it, but I can't make 2 separate meals every night. It's just not feasible for my lifestyle. So I think it's a personal choice and a lifestyle choice, and I don't aim at perfection anymore. I just aim at what works for me on this day.
If there's anything for you guys to take out of this right there, what she just said.
Yeah. And even when I was teaching yoga, I always said to people, do what feels right for you right in this moment, because every day we're different, our bodies are different, and we really need to honor that. And the more you can tap into who you really are, the more you really can move towards an extraordinary life. And guys, there's so much information out there now. It's not just my stuff. You could go out onto YouTube and find a million different tools that will help you, live an extraordinary life. And I really encourage you to experiment with a few of the things we talked about. Experiment with, meditation, experiment with breath work, experiment with the gratitude practice. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It could be 5 minutes, so try your snooze button session and do something for a week, and then try something else, stretch, do yoga, try a new thing, qigong, who knows? You could easily find all of this on YouTube. There's never been an easier time to learn anything. So it's all right there for you. So just experiment and do it with a sense of like, oh, I'm just having fun and I want to see, does this make me feel good or not? And if it doesn't make you feel good, drop it immediately. If it makes you feel good, keep going with it. That's how I live my whole life.
Yeah. Experimentations. Like for me to get to where I'm at now, I do a whole lot of different experiments to find out like what worked for me. And even something that worked for me in a moment didn't work for me moving forward. But what I should do before, when it wasn't working for me anymore, I will hold on to it. Oh, let me try to force it to make it work for me, but it wasn't working for me. It was like a struggle. But yeah, that flow. But like for me, I like to do things simplified. So the stuff that I do now is just simplified things that work for me in this moment right now.
And in all of these practices, you would think it gets more and more advanced, but the most advanced people do exactly what you just said. They've simplified it all the way back down.
Yeah.
So as you're learning it, you want to get more and more advanced. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I need to bring this all the way back to the simplest version. Because really we're all busy, right? We are all busy in this modern world we live in. There's so much going on, so much information. We have so many responsibilities. So the simpler you could make these practices, the better it is for you. Think of them as tools of gold. What are the tools of gold in your tool chest that are going to work for you? So assemble a whole tool chest of tools of gold, and then you have to remember to use the tools when you need them.
I'm trying to allow her to talk more.
I'm like, am I supposed to talk?
But yeah, this is a great conversation. We actually had one more comment.
Yes.
Too. So a person asked this
I like how you pop it up there like that. That's cool. Do I like the movie Cliffhanger? You guys have to answer this one. I haven't seen that movie.
I haven't either. I mean, I heard of it, but I never watched that movie. Sylvester Stallone. Definitely watch Rocky. Love Rocky. But
Yeah, everyone loves Rocky. Rocky's about peak performance, isn't it?
Going the distance. Because another guy I love, David Goggins, he talks about that part with him fighting Apollo for the first time, and when Apollo knocked him down, thought he won, and then Rocky got back up, and what David Goggins calls is taking souls. So he's like, in that moment, he took Apollo's soul because Apollo gave him everything that he had, and Rocky still got up and was ready to fight, and that took his soul, and that's like his mentality of taking souls type of thing. Keep going.
That's when you like leave everything on the table. I love David Goggins, by the way. He's so inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
Have you read his book? His book is so badass.
Yeah. That's what I love applying that with the spiritual nature. I like to call it the spiritual savage type of thing. That's my mentality with myself. With because he calls it accountability mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself right now. If you're honest with yourself, you no longer be afraid of others poking, making fun of you, whatever it may be, based upon those things you're judging yourself with. When you're honest with yourself with what's going on inside of you, you can work to like shift it and things. I'm like, that resonates so much.
His whole book resonated. And if for anyone out there who feels like, well, I can't have an extraordinary life, go buy that book by David Goggins, because you will find out how he started. He had a very difficult life. He was at the lowest low you can be, not the lowest low, but he was pretty down, and he completely changed his life. And it could happen for any of us. We have to just make the decision and then start taking action. So I'm going to encourage all of you guys to take action. And I hope that some of you actually do the snooze button technique for a month and see if starting a little morning routine will change the day for you. Because extraordinary mornings make extraordinary days make extraordinary weeks make extraordinary months, which make extraordinary years. And we all know extraordinary years all come together to have an extraordinary life. And that's what we're aiming at.
So, before we close out, where can people find you? Do you have any offers or anything going on for people? And then it seemed like you're ready to get a part of Master, so I'm gonna leave it at that. So those two things.
I have my first book I just put it up for 99 cents, the ebook version for today. For the next few weeks, I'm having it that way because I have my second book coming out in November. You can find me on Instagram. I am Kerry Fisher, or you can find me on coaching.She. But I would love it if you would check out the book. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you could actually just download it for free. I just uploaded that today, so it will be free for Kindle Unlimited and 99 cents for the ebook version, or you could get the hard copy if you would like as well. So I'd love you guys to check it out. If you read it, please leave me a review. But mostly, I would like you to just, whether you buy the book or not, it doesn't matter. You know the technique. It's the snooze button technique. If you try it, please reach out to me on Instagram and message me so I could hear all about your story, and then we can celebrate together.
Awesome. Awesome.
And what's your Instagram handle, Kerry?
My Instagram is I am Kerry Fisher, KerryFisher. And don't forget to look at my story where I write all the naughty stuff. And sometimes in my hashtags. But really, reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm really passionate about this stuff, you guys. I've been practicing it my whole life. And over the last, I would say 2 years, I've seen such huge growth from just doing these simple practices. I used to make it so hard for myself, spending hours a day doing all these things. And now I have just woven it into the fabric of my life. And that's what I want for you guys too. So remember, take action. Please reach out to me. And it's been a pleasure to meet you guys. Thank you so much. You guys are lovely. I really like you as a couple, and everything you had to say is really cool. It's badass.
Thank you. Likewise. This was a badass conversation with 3 badass beings right now.
I like that, badass beings.
Bad.
Go get that. Go get that. Go get that URL. Badassbeings.com. You can reach me at Kerry@badassbeings.com. Not really. All right, you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's so nice.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone who was here with your comments, your questions, the likes, the support with this. This was a magical conversation, and it wouldn't have been as magical if you guys were in here as well. So thank you so much for co-creating with us. And until next time,
Stay magical.
You've been listening to our Daily Magic Podcast with Kai and Dell. Please like, subscribe, and tune in next week for another magical episode. Visit www.ourdailymagic.com for more. Thank you for listening and have a